Welcome, everyone. Today we're diving into how to make smart decisions when spending money on social media advertising. My goal for today's Power Hour is to share how you can create ads that convert, how to manage your campaigns, and then how to optimize them to make sure you get the most out of them. Social media ads can feel really overwhelming, especially for people who aren't familiar with it, and posting your first ad can be super intimidating. There's a lot of options and different things that you can do, and so I'm hoping to kind of give you a little clarity and kind of simplify that for you. But organic posting is important for staying visible, but it's not if you want real business growth. Um, and organic posting just means posting on Facebook. You're not paying for an ad, you're just putting an ad or maybe a graphic or a photo and then sharing that post on your page. The downside to that is only about 5 to 10% of your followers even see your post. So if you have 1,000 followers, only 100 of them are even going to see any given post that you put out there, and that's best case scenario. So paid ads give you the ability to target exactly who you want to reach and also measure how your dollars are working for you. So that's kind of the difference between organic and paid content. Also, not all platforms are created equal for every business. So instead of spreading yourself thin and feeling like you have to post everywhere in order to reach the most amount of people, the best thing to do is to focus your dollars on one or two platforms where your ideal customers are already spending their time. So you want to think about who your ideal customer is or who your current best customers are. What age are they? What's their gender? What are their interests? The type of job they have, the income level, and then match them with the platform data usage. So, for example, Facebook and Instagram are typically great for local businesses and reaching families. LinkedIn is great for B2B and reaching professionals. And then TikTok and YouTube are typically reaching younger audiences and visual audiences. So that's typically kind of how those run. Let's see. All right. So the difference between organic and paid ads, we talked a little bit about, but you want to think of an organic post as your long-term relationship builder, and paid ads as kind of a short-term accelerator. So you want to do both, but when you're putting money in, you need to make sure it's going into ads with purpose. So again, with the organic post where you're just posting and you're not paying for an ad, that's things like photos, videos, updates, promotions, and they're great for building relationships and nurturing your existing followers, and kind of being consistent and showing authenticity. But paid ads are sponsored posts. So you pay to show to a very specific audience, not just your followers. So it's kind of allowing you to reach outside of the people who already know about you and reaching people who you're trying to attract. So you're trying to reach new people. It's good for trying to generate leads, sales, targeting specific demographics. When you are looking at creating an ad, a lot of dollars are kind of wasted simply because the ad is not good. The design and the message really need to grab attention. You want it to explain your value quickly and clearly and tell people what you want them to do, like book now or get an offer. So you want to have a clear goal. Are you posting this ad because you want to gain awareness? You just want as many eyes on it as possible, or are you trying to generate leads or actually make sales? You want your ad to be very eye-catching. You want the visuals to be clear. And then again, you want that clear call to action. What do you want them to do? And you need to tell them what it is that you want them to do. So if you look at the ad on the left, the orange one, it says recycling day. That's kind of just a hot mess express all around. They were trying to get a lot of information on there, thinking that more information is better. But the reality is it's just really overwhelming for your eyes, and I'm not reading anything on that at all. I'm just like, wow, that's a lot. So a better version of that same ad would be the one on the right. It tells you exactly, what it is, what's happening, the date, the time, the location, and then it kind of gives them a little information in the smaller boxes. And then, kind of it tells them, what they can bring and things like that. So those would be kind of the differences between, the ad on the left maybe not being very successful, and then the one on the right actually getting people to stop, look at it, potentially click on it for more information. Okay, so with your social media ads, they have 3 levels of structure typically. So a campaign is kind of the big picture. It's where you would set your overall objective for your ad. For example, are you wanting to just get more eyes on it? Are you trying to drive traffic or get conversions? So that's kind of your strategy level, or the why to your ad, like why are you posting it to begin with. The ad set is where you would define your audience, your budget, your schedule, and things like that. And what's cool there is you can test different audiences here. So you can place 2 ads, for example. One can target, say, local families, while the other ad could target commuters within a 10-mile radius. So you can actually run multiple ads at the same time under one campaign, and target different audiences. And then the actual ads themselves are, the images, the videos, the headlines, the things that have the actual call to action. And you would want to ideally run multiple ads to see which one would perform better. But it's not required. You can definitely have a campaign and then just post one ad and leave it at that, especially for your first one. So there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so when it comes to tracking tools, the most important part of managing your campaign wisely and making sure that you're not just throwing money into the wind and hoping for the best is you need to track what happens after someone clicks on your ad. Otherwise, you don't really know if it's working, or if you're spending your money wisely. So that's where the tracking tools come in. These can go very in depth, and I'm just going to very briefly kind of explain what each one of these is. So Facebook Pixel or Meta Pixel is basically a small piece of code that you can install on your website, and it tracks the actions that people take, like filling out your contact form, making a purchase, signing up for your newsletter. And with Pixel, you can measure conversions and also kind of retarget people who visited your site but didn't buy anything. So if someone clicked on your ad, but then they didn't actually make a purchase, then you can actually see that data, and you can retarget the ones who didn't buy with another ad, which is pretty effective. UTM links are special tags that you add to your website links. They allow you to see in Google Analytics which ad or campaign sent traffic to your site. So for example, you could compare whether your October oil change ad or your holiday promotion ad brought in more visitors. The conversion API is kind of a newer tool from Meta that works alongside Pixel. It tracks data server to server, which makes your results more accurate. Even if users have ad blockers or cookies disabled, you can still kind of track that data, which is pretty cool. Kind of a little bit scary, but also really cool if you're trying to hone in your ad. Google Analytics, most people have heard of. If your business uses Google Analytics, you can set up goals like form completions or sales, and link your social ads to those goals, giving you another layer of measurement outside of Facebook's dashboard. So if you do a holiday sale ad, you can set up Google Analytics to link to that specific ad and keep track of who is clicking and making, following what it is you want them to do. So the key takeaway really in all of this, which I know can be overwhelming, you don't want to run ads without tracking them, because if you're not measuring, you're guessing. and guessing is the fastest way to waste your money. So I highly recommend if you're going to do Facebook ads, you don't need to do all of these, but you need to pick one, what makes the most sense for you or what feels more comfortable to you, and definitely track it just to make sure that you're reaching whoever it is that you set out to reach in the first place. Okay, so to optimize your campaign, in order to make it effective, you really can't, unfortunately, just set it and forget it. Something that's really helpful is called A to B testing, which lets you kind of run two versions of the same ad to see which one performs better. That is a really great way to kind of hone in and see what it is that your ideal audience prefers so that you can serve them more content that they like. And then retargeting engaged users, which I kind of mentioned a little bit. Again, that's just serving kind of a follow-up ad to the people who clicked on your first ad but didn't maybe take the action that you wanted them to do. You can send them another ad, and it just increases your odds of getting them to purchase or get that warm lead or take the action that you want them to take. And then the final way to optimize your ad just to make it as effective as possible is you want to rotate your creative to keep your audience from getting what they call ad fatigue. So we've all been on social media where we've seen the same ad over and over and over for weeks and it looks the same. And I personally hide them. I don't want to see them anymore. I get tired of it. And you can avoid that by having multiple ads with different visuals. So it's the same ad content. It's the same, like, check out our oil change special. We're offering 10% off. It's valid for 30 days, but maybe you have three of the same ad running that have a different photo or a different graphic on it, just so that people don't get tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. Okay, and then this is kind of where the meat and potatoes is with your ads. Obviously, choosing your budget for an ad can be tricky and kind of overwhelming, again, if you're new to social media ads. So I wanted to kind of give you some info on some things to think about to help you at least have a starting point and kind of know where to begin. Because you can do a Facebook ad and run it for a few days and spend $10, or you can set an ad and have it run year round and spend thousands. So figuring out what would be ideal for you, can be a little bit daunting. So the first thing that I recommend that you do is you want to define your goal. Your budget should definitely reflect what it is that you want to achieve. So if your goal in your ad is to just bring awareness to your business, let's say you are a new cleaning business and you're new to the area and you're just trying to kind of get your name out there, not necessarily book new clients or get sales. You're just trying to kind of be out there and be seen. With an awareness ad like that, lower budget typically can work because you're paying for reach and impressions mostly. You're just trying to get as many eyeballs on your ad as possible. So lower budgets typically do well with that. If you're trying to actually get leads or make sales, you want to probably plan for more investment since conversions cost more than clicks or impressions. So, for example, an awareness campaign might cost you $5 to $10 a day, while a lead generation ad might take $20 or more per day. Knowing your customer value is extremely important. One way to kind of calculate your average customer value is, for example, if you have an oil change customer and they spend $50 and then they return 3 times a year, their value is $150 for that year. So that kind of helps you determine what you can afford to spend to acquire one new customer. If your goal is to create an ad and bring in, one new customer, then you can afford to spend about $150 on that ad, because by getting one customer, you're paying for that ad. Obviously, you want more, but that's kind of how you can figure out that dollar spend. And then you want to start small and then scale. So start with a test budget. You could even start with just $5 a day. Run the ad for at least 7 to 10 days to gather data, because you need a decent amount of time for it to really collect data, for it to be, worth looking at and accurate. And then you can shift your budget to what's working once you start to see results. So you don't have to start out huge. You can definitely start small and then just kind of tweak things and go along as you're comfortable. You also want to factor in your competition and your audience size. So if you're in a highly competitive industry like real estate, insurance, if you're an attorney, they typically have higher ad costs simply because there's just a lot more competition in those areas. And then also the larger and broader your audience is, or the more people you're trying to meet, the more budget you'll need to make an impact. So for example, if you're reaching a local 10-mile radius, you might need less budget than if you were targeting the entire metro area. You also want to set your budget by campaign objective. So your daily budget works well for always on campaigns or consistent campaigns. So let's say it's set for an entire quarter, or for, a full month. It's something that you're kind of doing for a decent amount of time. It's just not a one-time deal. That's a short-term sale, for example. So daily budgets are good for that. And then a lifetime budget is better for like a limited time promotion. So like a 30-day sale, for example. In my mind, that's always felt a little backwards because I feel like a lifetime budget would be for like a lifetime ad that's going to run all year. But it's kind of backwards. So basically what they're referring to is the lifetime of the sale. So if it's a 30-day sale, the lifetime of that sale is only 30 days. That's a short period of time. But if you're, running an ad for 3 months, then that's kind of the difference there. So, and then you want to plan for testing and doing that creative refresh when you're budgeting for your ad. So you want to reserve part of your budget, maybe 10 to 20%, to do that A to B testing, because you don't want to just kind of put all your eggs in one basket. If you're running more than one ad, you want to, reserve some budget so that you can run two and compare them, just to kind of prevent fatigue and improve your overall ad performance. And then the last kind of tip I have for setting your budget is thinking in terms of cost per result. So for example, if your goal is to book 10 new appointments and you estimate each booking costs you about $10 in ads, then you need about a $100 budget for that campaign. So kind of thinking of it in those terms makes it a little bit easier to decide, am I spending $100 or do I need to spend $500? Just think about what your goal is and tie back to kind of the results you're wanting to get, not just how much can I afford. So like I said before, you want to definitely be tracking your ads. And every social media platform has analytics or insights so that you can review the performance of your ad. Your ad report is basically your map. So if your goal was awareness, you don't want to obsess over how many people clicked on it. You just want to pay attention to how many people you actually reached. How many eyeballs did you get on that ad? If you're after leads, then your conversions would matter the most. You want to know who clicked on it. And you always want to measure against the goal that you set with your ad. So the most common metrics to watch typically are your reach or your impressions. Depending on the platform, it can be called either or. But that shows how many people saw your ads, which again is important for brand awareness. Your CTR, or your click-through rate, tells you how engaging your ad is, because a higher CTR means people are interested enough in your ad to click on it, and that's what you want, especially for leads. CPC, or your cost per click, helps you understand how efficiently you're spending to get traffic. So that's literally telling you, for example, on that top line, the cost per click on this ad was $1.27. So anytime someone clicked on that Fall Fun Fest ad to learn more, it cost me $1.27, which is decent. But the higher that cost is, it is telling you how many people are interested. So the higher that number, probably the less people you're getting. The lower the number, the more people you're interested in. You're kind of spreading it more, across more people, more eyeballs that way. And then your conversions, kind of like a book conversion would be like getting people to book an appointment, make a purchase, sign up for your newsletter. That is the most important metric if your goal is sales or leads, because those are, those are the group of people who actually did what you wanted them to do, or, answered that call to action per se. So let's talk a little bit about some tips and some pitfalls with social media ads. These are kind of some things that I see commonly that people kind of trip up with. The first one is targeting. So you want to make sure that you're not going too broad or too narrow with the people that you're targeting. If you're targeting too broad, like for example, you're showing your ad to everyone in the United States, obviously you're wasting money on people who would never buy anything from you. But on the other hand, if you go too narrow, like say you're just targeting men ages 42 who like pickup trucks and live within a mile of your shop, that is such a tiny audience that your ad isn't going to reach enough people to make a difference. So the sweet spot is an audience that's specific enough to be relevant, but wide enough to kind of give the algorithm room to learn and see who's interested and actually work for you. The second kind of tip that I can give you is you don't want to boost your posts without a strategy. So boosting posts is also similar to placing a Facebook ad. A post that you make organically, let's say you just open your Facebook page and you do a post and share a photo of your current oil change special, and you share that post for free. You don't pay to advertise that. Later on, you can go back and you can boost that post, which does cost you money, and it's basically turning that organic post into a paid ad. But it's also one of the easiest ways to waste money, because boosted posts usually optimize for likes and comments. Like it's just trying to get more people to like your post or comment on it. And it's not really great for generating leads or sales. So instead, you want to actually go into the ads manager where you can set a clear goal, like driving traffic, collecting leads. You're kind of telling the Facebook algorithm what your goal is and what you want to get out of the ad. That way, every dollar you spend can be tied to measurable results. And then third, you want to monitor your performance. Again, you can't just place an ad and set it and forget it, as much as I would love to sometimes. You need to check on them every day, and you should review the performance of it at least once a week. So you want to look at metrics like your click-through rate, your cost per click, cost per lead, just depending on your goal. And if something isn't working, or it's just not performing the way you want it to, don't keep throwing money at it. You can pause an ad, you can adjust it and replace your graphic or replace your verbiage or your call to action and replace it with a newer version of that thing. So don't be afraid to do that. You don't have to start over completely again. You can just pause it, make the tweaks that you want to make, and then continue the ad. And then the final tip really is just, you only want to reinvest in what's working. So this is where the spending wisely piece really comes in. I highly recommend that you use small test budgets to find what works and to find your winners, and then scale those campaigns up. So if you discover that one ad is generating $10 leads and another's generating $50 leads, don't split your budget evenly. You don't want to throw 10 bucks at each one. Obviously, the $50 ad is performing better, so you want to put the majority of your money there because it's driving the best results. So I think my biggest takeaway with that is you have to be intentional. You want to target carefully. Definitely use the ads manager to check your results, scale what's working. And that's really how you're going to avoid wasting money and really start to see a return on your investment with your social media ads. So really, I think the overall message is just that the smartest spenders on social media advertising don't just throw money into ads. They test them, they learn what works best, and then they optimize those ads. So again, I can't emphasize enough that you can just start small, figure out what gives you the best return, and then scale it from there. And then I think the strongest strategy, no matter what your goal is combining paid ads and organic posts at the same time. So you can definitely do a paid ad, but you definitely want to be posting about that sale for free on your Facebook page as well, and just kind of combine and let the organic and the paid work double duty for you.